Welcome to the Classical Happy Hour. I'm your host, Martin Davids. This is a show where my guests and I talk about music while enjoying a tasty beverage. Then we try to play some music together. Today's guest is Jonathan Woody. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Marty.
It's great to have you.
Great to be here.
For my listeners that don't know you, can you tell us about what you are doing for work these days?
Yeah, so I am a singer by profession, and right now I'm in Chicago working with you and the Haymarket Opera and the Newberry Consort, and we are performing Jacopo Peri's Euridice, and also there's a kitty cat in the background.
There is. Yeah, I just fed him, but apparently he needs more. So, is that most of what the work you do is just singing?
I do quite a bit of singing, and I also work as a composer. And my composition work often is connected to my singing work.
Cool. Can you tell me a little about your education?
Sure, yeah. I went to college for vocal performance at the University of Maryland, and then I got a graduate degree in early music from McGill University. And before that, I was a lifelong childhood musician, probably starting around age 3, singing in church choir, and then started piano lessons around age 7 and flute around age 12, and the rest was history, I guess.
So where'd you grow up?
Grew up outside of Washington, D.C. in the Maryland suburbs of Prince George's County.
Cool. So what made you want to go to Canada?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had graduated with my voice degree, and I was starting to do some gigs in the DC area as a mostly choral singer. And I realized that the music I always was gravitating towards almost always was composed before 1800. Usually it was Baroque music, maybe Renaissance polyphony. And that was just a trend I had noticed. And then some older colleagues were kind of like, you might be an early music expert.
Dude, hang on.
And I thought, maybe early music is something I should look more into. So I went to earlymusicamerica.org and checked out what the early music degree programs that had voice might be like. And of the ones that were available at the time in the year 2000 something, McGill, being in Montreal, was the one that appealed the most to me. And it was the right choice. I loved my time in Montreal. And I had a pretty good experience at McGill.
Cool. So, what was available? Like IU?
I think the list, included IU. Yale's sacred music program was relatively new, so that was an option. I think ASU had a program at the time, and USC had a program. And I think that was more or less it. And I think of those 4 choices, I was like, where do I want to live? And Montreal was more appealing than LA because it was still in the East Coast, and it was not in the U.S., which was something I had always dreamed of.
Yeah, no, it's eye-opening to live in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
And Canada's pretty nice.
Yeah. I had a great time living there. The early music community in Montreal is really wonderful. There's really a lot of wonderful people and a lot of talented musicians, and some of them are still my best friends now. And that was some years ago.
A number that we're not going to discuss.
That might a number that might make itself known at some point.
So, the people that you met in Montreal, do you still work with them?
Some of them, yeah, for sure. The times change, and when you migrate out of a city, sometimes you kind of fall off the list. But while I was living in New York, where I am still living, while I was singing at the choir of Trinity Church, where I no longer sing, we had some collaborations with some Montreal organizations. So I got to refresh my connection with some of those musicians every few years. And so yeah, there are still a few I stay in touch with, and a few who, if I see them out and about on a gig, it's always nice to reconnect. In fact, one of our musicians on our current project was a McGill classmate, Laura, who's playing recorder.
Oh, Laura. Yeah. Cool. So is your family musical?
Not really, no. No, I'm kind of the odd one out. My family's creative. My dad's a visual artist who specializes in, well, when I was younger, he specialized in pointillism with like a very fine tipped pen. And then he moved on into sort of like mixed media collage, and now he does civic art projects in the DC area, public murals and things like that. And my mom is started her career as a librarian and has always been sort of a literary person. And then she moved into working for government and has now retired from that life, but, I think still very connected to the arts in general. So I had a childhood full of the arts, but nobody in my family is a musician.
Pointillism. So, like, was he doing that to make money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a freelancer.
So people were buying pointillist
art? Yeah. I mean, his subject matter was often, scenes from the African American diaspora and scenes from Black culture. He painted a lot of blues musicians and jazz musicians, and so those would sell really well because they were beautiful. They were photorealistic, and if you looked zoomed in, you'd see that was in tiny dots. But if you zoomed out, it was just Dizzy Gillespie's face or whatever.
Cool.
And
do you have any of his work?
Not in my house. I mean, it is all over the place in my parents' house still. One day, I suppose I'll end up with it.
You'll inherit some whatever's not sold.
Whatever's not sold. Well, and funnily enough, now that he doesn't do as much freelancing, I think a lot of his work, some of it's in galleries, but who knows what'll happen down the road.
Did you ever think about or ask him to do like a pointillist of you?
My dad and I, despite the fact that we are both artistic, definitely when I was growing up, we didn't see eye to eye about like aesthetics or style. So I guess this is a little embarrassing to admit on a podcast, but my dad's art wasn't necessarily my taste. So I think he's brilliantly talented and I'm immensely proud of him. But if I'm decorating a house, I might not put his piece in it. I mean, unless it needed to be there for sentimental reasons, which it doesn't yet, I'm lucky enough to say.
Yeah. I like the idea of having a portrait done by an awesome artist, though, is kind of appealing. And it seems like you could get a deal from your dad.
Well, in the same way that, I was such a bad artist and still am, that my dad abandoned all hope of me following in his footsteps very early. I think I also perhaps separated how I interface with the world of art from like what my dad was doing, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Well, I'm just planting the seed there.
It's not worth dismissing out of hand, I suppose.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I was always also good at language and speaking and communicating. So I think I naturally had this thought that I was going to go to law school. It just seemed to be what people did when they were good at those things. And so, yeah, as a middle schooler and a high schooler, I wanted to actually be a judge. I did really fall in love with like the government and the politics and how it all works. Maybe growing up in the DC suburbs, we get a good rundown of all that stuff. And I've always thought that those governmental systems were well designed. I know that's a funny thing to say right now when they're all falling apart. But as a high schooler, I thought they were cool. And so that was definitely something I always thought. And then Actually, I say I majored in voice. I started off my undergrad experience as a double major in voice and politics, government and politics. But I dropped that second degree pretty soon because it was a lot of reading.
Well, in my judgment, it doesn't seem to matter what you studied in school if you want to be a politician.
I think that's probably right.
Although a lot of them seem to be lawyers, but it's not 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, basically, I think to get into politics, you have to be a good communicator and you have to be able to get people to, get behind you, follow you, believe in what you believe in. And that takes a lot of work, actually. I know people don't, in general, like politicians. They don't like the concept of it. But most politicians, despite, I think, the rumors, are actually not corrupt. I think some are very blatantly corrupt and they sort of ruin it for everybody. But I think the ones who have integrity, they are working very, very hard to try to convince people to follow them, try to convince people to come with them. I don't think that in and of itself is toxic. I think it gets toxic when you add the lust for power, which I don't think every politician has. And call me maybe a Pollyanna. I don't think every politician is coming from a place where all they want is power. Sorry, we changed that subject.
No, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, you can't say all of anything is after a thing,
True.
But some of them, it seems like once they get power, they don't like to relinquish it.
Well, that much seems very true, doesn't it? And power does corrupt. I think that much is also true.
So, when did you start writing music?
So writing music was like one of these things as a kid. In fact, I would say what I started with was improvising, improvising on the keyboard. And that was usually just a de-stress mechanism. I wouldn't say I was the most diligent, practicer of my instruments. Voice in a lot of ways came naturally to me. Instruments were harder. I never got good at the piano. My competitive nature got me good at the flute as a high schooler because we had this very competitive band program. But so I would improvise on the piano just to de-stress, despite the fact that I didn't have a lot of keyboard technique. And that carried through into college. And by college, I guess I got more exposed to newer repertoire composers I hadn't learned about in high school. A lot of American composers whose writing was really interesting. People like Barber, and Copeland. And I kind of felt around that age, late teens, early 20s, that I could write in a kind of similar way as some of these 20th century Americans. So I tried. And my colleagues, my friends at the time, I showed my pieces to them and they sort of laughed. And they were like, yeah, these are all just derivative of Barber. And that kind of discouraged me from actually attempting to develop further as a composer. I just kind of was like, okay, to be a composer, you have to be a real genius. And I'm just a music major. So I might like writing my little tunes and ideas down, but that's just for me and no one cares. And so cut to a decade after that, actually. And singing in the choir of Trinity Wall Street in New York. And my director there at the time somehow found out I was a shadow composer and basically didn't take no for an answer as far as me producing something to sing in the church service. And so I was really nervous about doing that. And it took a while, but I did do it. And then the choir and the congregation did sing my little piece. And I got a lot of positive feedback. And I was part of a unrelated group at the time, a self-produced vocal ensemble. And we developed our own programs. And whenever we needed 7 minutes of extra music, they'd be like, well, why don't you write something? And that got me practice. Got me practice with deadlines. got me practice with finishing things, which was something I kind of had to learn how to do. And then from there, the ball just kept rolling. And then in 2020, when we shut down, the one thing a person could still do was compose. Because all you need for that is your house and your computer. At least that's all I need. So throughout the pandemic, I continued to receive commissions, and they came in maybe a greater number after 2020. And that allowed me to really start to develop, grow. There's nothing that forces you to grow in a musical pursuit like having to do it regularly. That's how I learned how to play the flute. That's how I learned how to sight read as a vocalist. That's how I learned how to be a composer.
Well, like, nobody is automatically a good concert master,
Totally.
But when you have to do it all the time, you just have to decide, like, I'm going to really do it. I'm not going to, like, be afraid to do it. I'm not going to act like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to, like, do my best. And your best continues to get better the more you do it.
Hopefully.
Well, if you pay attention to what's happening. And I'm sure you're aware of what you're producing because you're making it. I mean, nobody's writing that stuff for you.
That's true. And, composers are lucky because, if we get to hear our pieces performed, that's instant feedback. And of course, I think I shouldn't speak for anyone else because I don't know. But every composer, I would imagine, when they hear their pieces, maybe for the first time after it's come out of you, there are things you're like, oh, I should have done that differently. Or, oh, I would change that. And sometimes I do change after I've heard it.
Yeah. I mean, just in my life, I live with someone who commissions stuff pretty often and then works with the composers to edit what they've done, because the idea that somebody's Mozart and they just birth a piece perfectly, like, in an instant is kind of bullshit. And it's, well, if you write a novel, you edit it. So why is it any different with a piece of music? I mean, I'm sure people were always fixing things, and as they wrote them, since they've been writing music.
Oh, totally. Well, and even the idea that music written down on a piece of paper would be the final version, I think is kind of a modern idea. Composers who wrote during our time, the time period of the music we love to play, if they wrote it down, it was because someone was playing it right then. And then the next time someone needed to play it, a year later, maybe there was a new part, and maybe that new part had different notes. And sometimes we've got both the parts, and we have to be like, well, which one's the right one?
Yeah, is the later one right, or is it easier because they had a shitty orchestra?
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't hate that if it were to creep back into our modern world, because it does seem like now when you write something down, then it's written, and it's hard to say, oh, I changed that. Like, oh, in this version from 2017, I want this note, but this version from 2015, doesn't have that note. Like, then you make a recording, and then the recording is the version. And then if you perform it and you're like, well, wait, you sang something that wasn't in the recording, then I'm like, well, I wrote it. Am I not allowed to?
Yeah, it's your piece. It's not like a tablet that was carved by God on the mountain, right?
And yet I do think something about how we approach classical music today causes us to treat even living composers that way. That it is fixed on the page as soon as the composers hit print or whatever.
I feel like the composers that believe they're beyond any editing are the worst ones, though.
Well, sure. Now, what I'll say is I do a lot of self-editing. I don't tend to have an external editor. I mean, I don't have a publisher or anything like that, so nobody has that job, and I'm not going to pay someone to do that job. But I do feel like I have like a quality control for myself And that is the bar of that is my own taste level. So if I listen back, even over MIDI, whatever, samples, if it's music I'm enjoying hearing, then I'm good to send it out into the world. And if I'm not enjoying hearing it, then I fix it until it is.
It's interesting what the concept of taste, because there's so many different tastes that people have for music, or lack of taste. But I see it in myself. There are certain ornaments I'm just like, no, I can't do that. I just don't like how it sounds, and I'm going to do something better. And the same with if I'm writing a piece of music, if I don't like the direction this melody goes, I need to figure out a better way to get from here to there.
Yeah.
And some groups of notes I just can't stand.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Certain devices that a composer, that probably hundreds of composers have used for hundreds of years, you're just like, no, I'm not going to use that one.
Yeah. I mean, some of them you're like, it's a stock thing, but it's a stock thing because everyone loves it. And other ones you're like, no. And where do we get our sense of taste from?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we definitely inherit it. I don't think it emerges in a vacuum. I think
it's genetic.
I don't know about genetic, but the world around us, I think, influences our taste, which is why they change from generation to generation. What we value in a larger sense, I think, also influences our musical taste. Some of my personal values are things like spontaneity and freedom and not getting too stuck in a rigid understanding of things. And so I love when a musician exhibits those characteristics while they're playing. Like, I love spontaneity in music making. I love ornaments that are made up in the moment, or when everybody locks in and we do a soft or we do a slowdown that we never talked about, but we all just feel like it's the right thing to do at that moment. That's some of the most thrilling moments of music making for me. And I think there's a relationship between the fact that I sort of value those things, I try to live my life that way, and that's like what I think sounds cool in music.
Yeah. I mean, those group things, that's like when everyone's in like a group consciousness, and that's just awesome.
It's so good. Yeah.
And when you say it's like your generation and it's the society that you live in, I mean, it's impossible not to be influenced. And it's great to be influenced because there's so many interesting people also writing music. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I love listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
And recorded music is one of the easiest ways to listen to it, but also live. Anyway, let's move on. So is there like you said you went to McGill because like you liked the kind of you liked early music.
Yep. Now
is that like the music that really speaks to you, or is there some other kind, or do you just like a variety?
So I actually do have kind of a narrow like set of genres. Yeah, early music has always spoken to me, but even within that, it's relatively narrow. It's like Renaissance polyphony from the 16th century and Baroque music from the 17th century and high Baroque and galant music from the 18th century. Like, those are the things that kind of really do it for me. And then kind of nothing else in the world of classical music, with a few exceptions. And then in the world of popular music, it's really just like trap music by female rap artists. Like, it's kind of always been that, even before we called it trap. Like, my first favorite rap artists were like Missy Elliott and Lil' Kim. yeah, just and now it's Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, you know. So, but even that is like very narrow. Like I don't really listen to much other popular music. I having musical knowledge is important to me, and so I listen to music so that I've heard it and so that I know it. But most other genres don't like hit me, like 1500 to 1800 and 1999 to now.
Cool. So, I mean, have you ever heard like a live performance of something outside of your limited
Well, yeah, of course.
preferences that you were like, well, maybe this shit's not that bad?
I mean, that's the thing. It's not as though I think the other stuff is bad. Like I can basically get down with any kind of music that has like a groovy rhythm, that has relatively sophisticated harmony. And when I say relatively, like you can have a country song that has actually pretty sophisticated harmony. Like you can do a lot with strumming to make the harmony more interesting. So like I don't necessarily mean it has to be, you know, like Bach counterpoint. Like, but there's a difference between, you know, Backstreet Boys and it's the synth and it's literally just one chord versus like a singer-songwriter who actually writes a song that has a beautiful melody and cool harmony underneath. So sure, there are singer-songwriters who have songs that have made me like cry my face off. You know, there's all kinds of genres that are effective, but for me, there's a different feeling for like my little handful of ones.
Okay. So when you like take a gig, what attracts you to it, like other than money?
Well, you know, maybe I'm not the first person to say this on your pod, but I feel like there's this gig calculus that a lot of us do, right? And it's good friends, good music, good money. And then I would say with good music, it has a sub category, which is a good piece or the music is performed well. I would say for me, I need two out of three of those things. Or if it's all four, then like 2.5 out of 4 in order to say yes to a gig. So I'll say yes to something that doesn't pay or pays poorly if it's a bunch of people I love working with and if it's music I love making. So that is basically every Renaissance Polyphony gig that I've ever had in my life because they don't pay. But I will always sing polyphony and have been lucky enough to sing some really wonderful polyphony with some really high quality folks. Now, if it's going to be a piece of music I could care less about, Beethoven 9, please pay me a lot of money. Or at the very least, I would like to be working at an extremely high level with extremely talented musicians.
For a lot of money.
Ideally.
So if you didn't do music for a living, what would you want to do?
Oh, that's a hard question because it's changed over the years. Like I said earlier, like when I was younger, I think I did want to get into politics. Nowadays, the idea of getting into politics seems so much worse than being a musician. There were times when I thought it would be an easier life than the musician life. I don't think that anymore. I think now, if my larynx fell out, you know, I would probably try to maybe teach foreign languages. That's another passion of mine, learning foreign languages. Maybe I would... teaching something, probably. But it would be and social studies. So if it wasn't languages, maybe history or maybe politics, but at that, you know, teaching a high school class, not running for office.
Do you have a lot of voice students or do you have any?
I don't have any voice students. I have, to be honest with you, no interest in teaching voice. If I was going to teach musicians, and I do have interest in teaching musicians, I would like to teach a lot of things. I'd like to teach musicianship skills to singers. That would be something I'd love to teach, like at the university level. I would love to be an ensemble or a chamber music coach for singers. That's just the kind of thing that singers don't get training wise. You know, instrumentalists get so much chamber music training starting as undergrads. Singers get none. You get choir and you get opera. And neither of those builds all the skills you need to be a successful chamber vocal artist. But that career path is a solid career path, and there's a lot of us doing it, but most of us have had to figure it out. And so I think it would be really cool if a school, if a university decided to focus at, you know, one university in our country full of them, decided to focus a program on vocal chamber music. And that I'd love to be a faculty member in a program like that, where I'm helping singers listen and think about the things in the score besides their voice part that they should be aware of. You know, like the kind of stuff that I would like to say makes me a good vocal colleague in an instrumental ensemble.
So when you say vocal chamber music, do you mean like cantatas or like solo songs with accompaniment?
All kinds of things. I mean, and it's not just Baroque. You know, a lot of this stuff, we haven't yet discussed this on the pod, but you and I work together at Stanton Festival in Virginia. And a lot of the repertoire that happens at Stanton Festival is perhaps one singer with 4 players, or 3 singers and 6 players, you know, and each of these different arrangements takes a slightly different level of approach and preparation, you know, from all of us. And I feel like those of us who sing at Stanton Fest, we all have a lot of that experience. But younger singers, they don't necessarily get that experience. And I would like to be somebody helping to provide that.
I mean, I love the idea. And it's true that singers, like, they get the large ensemble experience, but I don't know how much small ensemble stuff you get in school.
Certainly as an undergrad, it's rare. When you go to one of those grad programs that I mentioned earlier, and now there are a few more, by the way, you might get that experience there. But as an undergrad, good luck.
What do you love about your work?
I could go on all day. First and foremost, it's turning this art, which comes down to us, you know, as documents from hundreds of years ago, into a human experience that people can have. You know, tonight we performed the earliest thing we call an opera, written in 1600. It's hard to even call it an opera. There's very little in the way of what one would call an aria. It's mostly recitative. But the idea that this document, which then birthed a genre which still continues to be inspirational to people 400 years later, people are still creating new operas 425 years after this one. All we know about it comes from pieces of paper that were old before our grandparents were born. The fact that we can take those pieces of paper and cause somebody in an audience to cry is incredible.
It is.
It is that represents like a type of power, a type of like human achievement that's hard to overstate in my mind, the value of that for us as a species. You know, so few other species, and certainly none we are intimately aware of, can access their own history this way, can transfer knowledge, you know, generations in the past. Now, it does seem like maybe some can, that we are now learning more about, like certain mushrooms and stuff. But as far as a complex animal life form that can do that, you know, it's phenomenal.
It is amazing, yeah.
So that is first. Like I said, I could go on and on. Second is the people. Every person in my life that I value is a musician, is somebody doing one of the things I'm doing, and my family. But but I don't really have anybody else in my life who isn't in our community besides my family. And that's on purpose. The people that I've met in 30 years of being a classical musician are the people I want around me all the time. They're the people I want to spend time with. They're the people I want to talk to. They're the people I want to laugh with. They're the people I want to cry with. So yeah, the people is number 2. And then I guess maybe the lifestyle is the third part that I love. I love travel. I love that I can be in different cities every week and that I have a group of friends in every city. That is such a cool thing. You know, I got here to Chicago a week ago and I've gone out basically every night or hung out with somebody. Like, that's really cool in a city I don't live in. I had my birthday in Boston 3 weeks ago. I had a whole birthday party full of friends in Boston, another city I don't live in. So that's a really cool aspect of it. And then, you know, the immense wealth and the very secure retirement package.
You're just trying to wake people up now.
Gotta keep some laughs.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, when you were saying that, I thought about a friend of mine that like just came down with like a serious illness, a musician friend that travels a lot and plays with all kinds of people. And he, I think if he's not able to go out and perform with all these people, then it takes a real toll on his social life. Like, this is the friendships that we build, and they're just all over, and our work friends are like real friends. And when you play concerts with people, it's in a way it's like, I don't want to overstate it, but you feel like you've gone through battle together or gone through some intense experience together.
It can be very intimate.
Yeah. And you know, when you're on a stage and you're reading each other's minds like that, it's hard not to be close with those people. So yeah, I get everything you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think I would trade this for anything. And you know, in all seriousness, like there are hard days, and I know you know that too. There are very hard days in this profession. There are days where travel sucks. There are days where it sucks to be broke. There are days where you get up on stage and you don't do your best, and you feel like maybe you're a failure. Maybe you should never have done this in the first place. But the reason I guess I keep coming back to it is, I can't get enough. Like, I haven't done all my favorite pieces enough times yet.
Yeah.
I haven't done Handel's Messiah enough times yet.
I mean, me either. And it's amazing to say that. You know, something you said earlier about like the positive response you got to your composition reminded me of like why I'm a violinist. I mean, I was like, I don't know, 18 or 19, and I played at a coffee shop, and some guy tipped me $20, and I was like, oh, I can make money doing this. Like, maybe I should like work harder, and like people like what I'm doing, and like real. If that's what like drove me into this, that's just so bizarre. Like $20.
Yeah, so that I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've also had the experience of like busking on the street. Haven't done it a lot, but one summer I did it while I was living in Montreal, because Montreal is not a very expensive city actually, and so you can kind of survive there, making a few bucks a day on the streets. And so I played my flute, and I had a good friend, another wonderful singer who you might have on the podcast sometime. So that'll be a teaser. He was playing his second instrument, which was cello. And so we played for 2 hours every day. We made about $20 each every day. And then we just spent it on like beer and dinner. And there's something about playing music and the people directly paying you that's really cool and really freeing. You're like, oh, right, people actually just like this. And they're willing to part with their hard-earned. In the case of Canada, the dollars are a coin.
Yeah.
So maybe it's easier.
Just toss some loonies in your case.
Couple loonies, couple toonies. We even get a couple toonies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's as high as it goes, isn't it, for the coins? Okay, do you have any advice for young musicians?
So, yeah. So here's a piece of advice I got, and I'm not going to give you this one, but I'm going to tweak it. The piece of advice I got was, don't go into this as a profession unless there's nothing else in the world you can do. I don't think that's actually good advice, because I think everybody probably has a million things in the world they could do. What I would say is, if you want to go into this profession, make sure the reason is that you have an insatiable love of music. It doesn't mean it has to be the only thing you love or the only thing you do, but the love of the music has to be so much that you can put up with the rest. If you don't have that, then I don't think you should do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm glad that you love it. I love it too. Do you have any cool things upcoming that you want to mention?
Yeah. I guess I'll talk about my. Well, here, why don't I talk about some pieces that I am working on that will be premiering at some point next year. One is
deadlines.
One is a cycle of lute songs. At this point, it's probably going to be about 3 songs. For, I believe it'll be SATB singers and lute, maybe 2 lutes. And they're going to kind of be an answer to John Dowland's work. And the text will be from Songs of Solomon, one of my favorite sources of text. Because, sometimes you want to actually just write pretty music about love. So that's coming. And then the other thing that's coming, not pretty music about love, we're celebrating America's 250th anniversary, as we know, next year. And so I am going to write a piece for instruments that probably would have been prominently heard during the Revolution, particularly the clarinet. The clarinet. So I'm going to write a clarinet quartet with
Life
voice. Yeah, sure. I'll just right. You can transpose it. And that's going to be on text surrounding freedom, both from the American founding fathers and the enslaved people that worked for them.
So, are you writing the text or?
No, these are real texts that exist. There were several enslaved people after the Revolution in the Northeast who successfully sued for their freedom. And so we have their court cases. And the texts from those court cases are beautiful.
Cool. So is it like testimony?
It's people arguing for their own freedom. And particularly there's one that's a woman. And she describes her human value and why she should be free. And it almost perfectly parallels what the founding fathers were writing about King George and about how they needed to be free from tyranny. It's almost exactly the same language, and I think that's very cool. So I'm going to try to juxtapose those.
I can imagine that someone writing about their own value as a person and why they shouldn't be a slave could be amazing.
Yeah. I didn't even know these existed until I started researching. I didn't realize people had done this.
With clarinet quartet.
Yeah. Hey, look, sometimes you just got to go where the commissions take you.
Yeah, okay. That explains that. But Dowland, I mean, that's like that dude's a star.
He really is, and so I've got a tall order here.
Yeah.
But I've had to answer a few other pretty good composers, and I don't think I've fallen too far on the wayside.
I just can't. I don't know what I would write for the lute.
Well, I'm going to be listening to a lot of lute. That'll help.
Yeah.
I've sung with a lot of lute, and I love certain chords and the way they are voiced and sound on a theorbo, on like a nice big arch lute that has some bass notes. Yeah, I already have some ideas. Lots of fun, diminished harmonies.
That's cool. And I also love, you said that you love to feel free. Like you don't have to like try to be Dowland.
Exactly. It's inspired by, and in fact, I won't be Dowland.
You can't be.
And one of the things that's fun about writing music inspired by our favorite composers from the past is kind of like I'm imagining how they might write differently if they had been exposed to everything that's come in the last 400 years. If Dowland had heard Beyonce, if Dowland had heard Alanis Morissette.
I mean, do you ever have this thought when you're listening to some awesome modern thing, like what would Bach think, or what would
all the
this
time.
person think?
And the funny thing is, I think Bach would actually really embrace a lot of like I think Bach would have embraced the second Viennese school. Like I think,
especially after a few beers.
Mm-hmm, like I think all that Webern, all those tone rows, I think Bach would be super into that. All those numbers.
I think you might be right, but I'm glad that he wasn't exposed to that. Aren't you?
I mean, yeah.
Because like the stuff that came before him, like when he does the backward looking stuff, it's pretty kick-ass.
Oh, I love it.
Then when he tries to be like current, it's also kick-ass.
Well, and current for Bach was also, it's like the boomers. It's like Nancy Pelosi wearing a kente cloth. Like current is a stretch.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything you want to ask me?
Actually, yeah, I did have a question for you. So, because we've worked together in lots of different contexts, and I am curious, if you had a choice between concertmaster of, let's say a Haydn symphony, soloist in a like 1 and a part version of a Corelli Concerto Grosso, or you, concert violinist, standing at the front of the stage, Paganini, whatever the thing, crazy fucking violin shit. Of the three, what's your favorite?
I mean, Corelli.
Yeah.
Easily, yeah.
Okay.
Like the part like where it's just about me. I mean, yeah, I love the sound of the violin. I love to play it. But it's so much better to play with other people. And it's just a tool to connect to people. And when I can connect to people that are also using theirs to connect with me, that's way better than just like being like me, like show off. I mean, I love to show off.
Well, and maybe not a Paganini. What if we said like Dario Costello, or from the other direction, like something where it's really just like one violin doing a bunch of stuff, and everybody else just kind of backing you up?
I think maybe in the past I would have liked to do the one. I mean, I still love playing solo sonatas.
Yeah.
And I'm not like gonna quit doing that.
But if you could pick, your ideal gig, it would be the Corelli. It would be the
Corelli. I mean, I just played Corelli last week.
Nice.
Concerto Grossos, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's great. And especially if you're leading and you can just like guide that awesomeness, that perfection, and then just like add your own like grace to it.
Cool.
It's super amazing.
That's my violin envy piece. The Corelli Opus 3, the D major.
You mean Opus 6?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, we played D major last week.
What's your singer envy piece? That's my second question for you.
I mean, I've always wanted to do Messiah karaoke of like Trumpet Shall Sound.
Really?
Dude, the B section's awesome.
The B section kicks ass.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of singing that A section though. I shouldn't say that out loud. I love Messiah. I love Messiah. I've done 1,000 Messiahs. I love Messiah. My whole December is Messiah. I'm looking forward to it. We have one.
Dude, I've been talking for years about like just getting together a band and like doing like a fundraiser Messiah karaoke where someone like pays a certain amount to just go up and sing an aria.
People definitely would.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think it's a great idea.
For
I just
sure,
never
would.
like have pushed it through all the way.
Yeah, I mean, you really, if you actually want.
But I want to get up too.
If you want to actually raise some money from that, though, you got to really make it fancy. You got to like rent out a nice space, and it's got to have, you got to invite an audience, and then really get the donors to be like, now you're really doing this. Like, wear your tuxedo. You're going up there. You're singing it. This is the experience. You're paying for it. Because they all want to. That's the dream.
I mean, yeah. You got to like cut off the time. Like, how many can you hear though?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it's definitely, it's a raffle. It's an auction. Like, not everybody gets to do this. Like, it's a handful of people who give the big bucks.
Although some of the worst ones could be the best,
Yeah, well, still, yeah. No, at that point, it's not about how good they sound. It's about how much they paid. This is a fundraiser. This is so we can put on a real Messiah and sound good.
But there's so many ways to experience making music, You don't have to be a professional.
Absolutely.
And I feel like for professionals, it's harder to listen to live music. I mean, I went to my son's high school choir concert last night, and I just had to, they have like numerous ensembles. Mm-hmm. So they start with like the weakest and they move, like by the end of the concert, it's the best kids. And I just had to let myself enjoy a Thursday night mm-hmm. where a ton of like high school parents were out there to see their kids sing, and those kids got the experience of singing in a group together and like what that feels like in front of a big audience.
Yep.
And so like these donors, they don't know what we go through all the time. Mm-hmm. And what it takes to just like believe you can get up there and kick ass every night.
I mean, and we should probably wrap it up, but this summer, at our festival, I was audacious enough to play my flute in front of everybody at one of the like nightcap concerts. And that was a completely different experience because, I mean, I've played the flute in front of people before in my life. Certainly as a high schooler, it happened all the time. But since then, I guess I don't really play in front of people that much. And I got way more nervous than I've gotten as a singer in decades. I'm used to getting up on stage and singing my face off in front of, whoever. But playing the flute in front of a bunch of instrumentalist colleagues who I respect and who are all better than me at their instruments than I am at the flute was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a completely different physical experience. My hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. Like, it reminded me of being in high school again. When that used to happen before I sang.
Yeah, so I did enjoy the experience though, and I just didn't want to judge. Like, yeah, and when I was in high school, not every sound I made was perfect. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So let them, as long as they're going for it.
Well, and we're all here because of high school music education. We all did what we did in high school, and that's why we decided to do it. Maybe some people got started before that, but for me, it was definitely high school.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Please subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you want to, and I know you do, you can buy my arrangements on www.bachfor2.com and keep making music with each other. And we'll be right back, and we're going to try to play some music together.
Hey.